Next, let's talk about conditional statements. A conditional statement is a set of commands that execute if a specified condition is true. JavaScript supports two conditional statements, if-else and a switch statement. For the if-else statement, we use it to execute a statement if the logical condition is true, and we use the optional else clause to execute a statement if the condition is false. So an if statement looks like as follows. Basically, you have the if keyword, which is followed by a condition which will evaluate to either true or false. Now, if that condition is true, then it's going to run the first command that you put here. And otherwise, optionally, you can run another command here. So this is kind of like a light switch. For example, you could say, if no one's home, then turn off the light. Otherwise, if someone is home, then keep the lights on. So this gives us basically a switch in logic, and we can actually trigger behavior to occur based on a condition evaluating to true or false. So here's an example of how you can use an if-else statement. So we can create a variable of gas tank and set it equal to the number 34. So we have 34 gallons of gas. Then we can say, if gas tank equals 34, then we want to send this message to the JavaScript console window, which is the tank is full. Okay. Now otherwise, if for some reason something happens, the car drives a long time and uses up the gas, and the gas tank is not equal to 34, then instead we can say the tank is not full. We can add more flexibility to our if-else statements by adding in additional else-if clauses. So here we're saying, if the gas tank is equal to 34, then report that the tank is full. Else, if the gas tank is greater than 34, then instead say, oops, the tank is overfilled. And else if the gas tank is actually less than 34 and greater than 5, then we can say that a tank refill is suggested. And then otherwise, it will default to simply saying that we refill the tank mandatory. For an if-else group like this, we can only have one if, and we can only have one else here at the bottom. But you can really have as many else-if commands as you like. And you'll notice that the if command here has a condition, and that all of the else-ifs also have a condition that must evaluate to true or false. But the else here does not need a condition, and that's because this is sort of the fallback here, where if none of these conditions up here were satisfied, if these were all false, it's going to just move on to the next one. So here, if this first one was false, it would move on to the next else if. And if this one was false, it would move on to the next else if. And then nothing's left but to use the else condition here. Now, let's say that the first one is false, but the second one was true. Whenever one of these is true, it's not going to evaluate the rest of them. So if it turns out that the gas tank is actually greater than 34, and that this second command here, which is the else if, happens to be the one that's true, then it's not going to bother evaluating the others below it. It's going to simply run the command or the statement that's listed within the curly braces here and here. We also have switch statements. A switch statement allows a program to evaluate an expression and attempt to match the expression's value to a case label. If a match is found, the program executes the associated statement. So a switch statement looks as follows. We start off with the keyword switch, and then that's going to accept an expression, and whatever expression we insert there is going to be matched against each of these cases. So in case the expression matches this first value, it will run this statement. And in case it matches the second value, it will run this statement. And what happens is, if it matches one of these here, then unless you specify the break command, it will simply fall through to the next one. So here, if we were not including this break command, what would happen is when the expression matches this first label, it would run this first statement, and then it would also additionally run the second statement and any other statements below until it came across a break command. Okay. We also have the ability to insert a default. So in a situation where none of these cases matched, you can also have a default command that will simply just run on its own. Here's a real example of a switch statement. So you could imagine that we have a variable called fruit type, and by using the keyword switch and accepting that variable fruit type in, it's going to compare the value of fruit type against all of the cases. So if, for example, the variable fruit type is equal to the string of oranges, then that value here is evaluated as this expression, and it's matched against all of these cases. So here it would actually match this first case of oranges, and then we would report back that oranges are 59 cents a pound. However, if we set fruit type to be equal to apples, then what would happen is it would match the second case and it would report apples are 32 cents a pound. And you could see then that if it was equal to bananas, we could report the price of bananas. And in the situation where it was either mangoes or papayas, here we can have multiple cases that run the same command. So here it will tell you that both mangoes and papayas are $2.79 a pound. And again, anytime you see a break, that will prevent something called fall through. It basically draws a line and says, after you run this command, stop. Break the process and don't run any more commands below. So this is one thing to be careful of if you're using switch statements, because if you forget to put in a break, what will happen is it will just run from one statement to the next to the next. Okay. And again, we do have that default statement. So if for some reason fruit type is equal to something that's not listed here, it will actually say, sorry, we are out of that fruit type. So if we say, for example, melons, if the variable fruit type is equal to the string of melons, then what it will say is, sorry, we are out of melons.